Early morning in Sonoma. The gentle sunrise filtered through ancient oak trees, casting dappled light over winding trails blanketed with golden leaves and fresh green grass. The air was crisp and cool, filled with the scent of damp earth and soft sunlight, an ideal setting for the day's first run. Emily Parker, 28, a dedicated physical therapist, moved with steady, enduring grace. Her golden hair flowed behind her, her bright eyes shining with the calm determination she found in every stride. Alongside her, James Morgan, her boyfriend, and a software engineer, shared quiet, peaceful moments as they ran together. That morning, as usual, they paused at the familiar fork in the trail, a weathered wooden sign marking the entrance to Wild Oak Trail. James pulled out his phone to capture the moment. Emily's radiant smile and sparkling eyes bathed in the morning light. They continued on, blending into the tranquil embrace of the oak forest and the sprawling fields beyond. But within that calm, something unseen waited ahead, a silent absence poised to shake the lives of those who loved her. Morning mist still clung to the ancient oak trees of Sonoma, where the soft sunrise filtered through the leaves, illuminating patches of golden foliage scattered over a trail blanketed with earth and decaying leaves. The morning air was fresh and cool, mingled with the scent of damp soil and faint wildflowers, creating a scene both peaceful and mysterious. Emily Parker, 28, a dedicated physical therapist at a local medical center, was an avid runner. She was familiar with every step on these trails, having spent hundreds of mornings here when the world was still quiet, filled only with the sound of steady breaths and the rustle of leaves. Her golden hair flowed lightly with each stride, and her eyes shone with determination and freedom. Her running was more than exercise. It was a search for peace within herself. Beside her was James Morgan, her boyfriend, a calm and thoughtful software engineer. They had shared countless miles and moments together, blending peaceful times with everyday challenges. That morning, they paused at a familiar fork, marked by an old wooden sign named Wild Oak Trail, a well-known landmark signaling the beginning of a dense oak forest trail. James pulled out his phone and quickly captured the moment. Emily's bright smile under the morning sun, her eyes filled with life. The photo seemed to promise a day full of hope and tranquility. Emily glanced back at the sign, then continued deeper onto the trail. Yet, her eyes flickered with a hint of hesitation as they passed through thicker patches of undergrowth unnoticed by James. Her figure gradually disappeared into the woods, carrying a stillness that only those intimately connected with nature could perceive. At home, Sarah Klein, Emily's colleague and close friend, received a message from James. The message said Emily hadn't returned from her morning run. Anxiety and worry surged in Sarah's heart. Her intuition warned her that something was amiss ahead. She called and texted Emily, but received no reply. Looking out the window, Sarah saw the clear sky, untouched by any sign of a normal day. She knew a search was about to begin, a journey full of mystery, challenges, and yet unrevealed pain. After a peaceful morning bathed in sunlight along Wild Oak Trail, the disappearance of Emily Parker quickly turned into an undeniable fear. James Morgan, her calm and cautious boyfriend, was the first to notice something was wrong when Emily didn't return home as planned. His repeated calls and messages went unanswered, sounding the alarm in his heart. James wasted no time informing family and friends. The news spread like wildfire through the Sonoma community, where Emily was known as a vibrant, energetic, and friendly woman. The neighborhood began an urgent search with the help of local police and volunteers. The Sonoma County Sheriff's Department swiftly mobilized professional teams, dispatching rescue units, rangers, and search dogs to comb through the dense oak forests and surrounding hills. Helicopters patrolled the skies, using infrared cameras to scan the ground for any sign of Emily. Sarah Klein, Emily's close friend and colleague, could not sit still. She joined local volunteers, trekking hills and following small streams, calling Emily's name across areas where footprints and traces remained. The sun grew stronger, filtering through the leaves to cast shifting patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor, heightening the tension and eeriness. Every footstep echoed through the woods, mingling with bird calls and rustling leaves. The searchers discovered small footprints leading deeper into less frequented areas, along with personal items like a discarded handkerchief by the trail's edge. Yet these were only preliminary clues, unable to unravel the greater mystery. Worry and tension showed plainly on every face, especially Sarah's. She was not just a friend, but a running partner who knew Emily's habits and strengths intimately. Sarah sensed that this was no ordinary disappearance. It bore the marks of intent, signs of lurking danger. Days passed as news spread across local media, calling on the community to assist. Search campaigns grew larger, attracting more volunteers, but no definitive trace of Emily was found. Meanwhile, rescue teams continued tirelessly surveying the most remote and wild areas, those hidden forest patches seldom visited by people. They found more suspicious items, but nothing conclusive. Everything seemed swallowed by darkness, with only the terrifying silence of the Sonoma woods remaining. Amid it all, the pain of family and friends deepened into despair. Questions repeated endlessly in their minds. Where was Emily? Had someone harmed her? What really happened on that familiar trail? Flickers of hope were sustained by the persistence of the search. Teams and the love and solidarity of the Sonoma community. Everyone believed that no matter how dense the darkness, the light of truth would eventually shine through. The late afternoon sun waned over Sonoma's ancient oak forests, casting faint, flickering patches of light across the moss-covered ground scattered with dry leaves. The air grew cooler, a gentle breeze stirring the rustling leaves like whispered secrets from the old woods, wrapping all who walked there in a silent, haunting world. Henry Walker, a retired chef and longtime truffle hunter in the area, quietly navigated the mossy, leaf-strewn trail alongside his Legato Romagnolo dog named Rosie. With her tight curls and keen nose, Rosie periodically paused to sniff deeply at patches of earth. For Henry, this was more than a job. It was a passion. Every handful of soil unearthed a tiny treasure of nature. But today was unlike any other. Rosie suddenly stopped, barking sharply before eagerly digging beneath the sprawling roots of an ancient oak tree, where thick layers of dry leaves cloaked the forest floor. Henry quickly approached, carefully brushing aside the dead leaves to reveal a worn plastic bag, buried under dirt and forest debris. His heart tightened as he recognized fragments of athletic clothing inside. A dark blue lightweight jacket, a pair of worn running shoes, and a mud-streaked sports headband. The headband stirred a memory of his close friend Emily Parker, who had mysteriously vanished from this very trail nearly 2 weeks prior. Henry carefully placed the bag into his backpack and immediately called Sonoma County Police. His voice was low and hoarse as he reported a discovery that could be a vital clue in the disappearance case. Nearby, Rosie stood alert beside the tree, her eyes bright and tail wagging cautiously, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. Henry scanned the quiet woods, noticing a sudden stillness. The usual birdsong had ceased, leaving only his heavy breaths and the sound of digging. Wild Oak Trail, once peaceful and pristine, now felt different, dark, silent, and filled with secrets slowly surfacing. Henry knew this find would change everything, propelling the investigation into uncharted territory, raising questions about Emily's fate and the shadow looming over her. The Sonoma sky deepened into twilight purple as Henry and Rosie prepared to return to base, hearts heavy with worry but flickering with hope that the truth would finally be uncovered. Upon receiving information from Henry Walker, the Sonoma County Police immediately organized a special task force to excavate the area around the oak tree where the plastic bag was found. The atmosphere at the scene was tense, but filled with determination, as everyone understood this could be a crucial clue to solving the case. The forensic team meticulously examined the items inside the bag: muddy athletic clothes, a broken sports watch, and several small personal belongings. All were coated with forest dirt and showed signs of having been abandoned there for some time. Investigators collected DNA samples from the evidence to compare with Emily Parker's records. The initial results sent chills through the team. The samples matched perfectly. This was no longer suspicion, but concrete proof of Emily's presence at this location, the last place she was known to be. Additionally, the investigation team uncovered other suspicious signs around the deep forest area: unfamiliar footprints, traces of unidentified vehicles, and fragments of objects potentially linked to the mysterious disappearance. Step by step, the picture of a complex crime began to emerge. It was no longer simply a missing person case, but a lead toward a sophisticated criminal conspiracy filled with unexplored twists. Inside the investigation room, the pressure mounted by the hour. Officers worked overnight, connecting data, analyzing evidence, and planning their next moves. Emily Parker was no longer just a name on a missing persons list, but the centerpiece of a deliberate homicide case. At home, Emily's family and friends continued to pray and hope, though deep down, they knew time was running out. Each day passed with anxiety and pain, but also with relentless pursuit of the truth. After gathering crucial evidence and discovering the key clue on Wild Oak Trail, the Sonoma County Special Task Force intensified its investigation. Every day, officers meticulously combed through security camera footage from nearby areas, interviewed neighbors and potential witnesses who may have seen the suspect or anything unusual connected to the case. The suspect was a middle-aged man with a criminal record of assaults and harassment against women in Sonoma and surrounding counties. He had been cautioned by police multiple times, but there had never been enough evidence to charge him. Detectives knew he was dangerous and highly likely to be involved in Emily's disappearance. One day, through surveillance footage from a grocery store near Wild Oak Trail, investigators spotted the suspect appearing repeatedly during the times Emily was known to run. He could be seen walking along the trail, pausing at vantage points as though stalking someone. Most chilling was a clip of him standing near the exact spot where Emily's plastic bag was later found, his eyes cold and body tense, as if waiting for something. Further, detectives analyzed data from the suspect's phone and computer. His call logs, text messages, and web history revealed he had been monitoring Emily's social media posts, tracking her routines and schedule with disturbing precision. Meanwhile, officers met regularly with Emily's family to update them on progress and gather more background. The family's emotions ran raw, a mix of grief, anger, and desperate longing for justice. Emily's mother spent sleepless nights, walking the very trails her daughter loved, clinging to hope for a miracle. The task force also began preparing a tactical plan for the suspect's arrest, coordinating with neighboring jurisdictions to block escape routes and consulting behavioral experts to anticipate his next moves. With each passing day, the pressure mounted. Tension was etched on the officers' faces, visible in the urgency of emergency meetings and whispered strategy sessions. No one dared make a mistake. A single misstep could doom the case, leaving behind only lingering pain for Emily's family and community. In everyone's heart, Emily was more than a victim. She had become a symbol of resilience and hope, her story inspiring all who fought against the shadow of violence and injustice. The night the Sonoma police decided to execute the arrest, the entire town seemed to hold its breath. After weeks of preparation, they finally had an official warrant, backed by the evidence collected from the scene and the suspect's digital trail. That night, the air inside the precinct was taut, like a wire pulled to its breaking point. The fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow over the determined faces of the officers. A wide map lay on the table, marked with trails, turns, and the suspect's remote residence, carefully plotted for the operation. The suspect lived in a small house tucked away deep in the northern woods of the town, surrounded by trees and only a few scattered neighbors. It was the perfect place for him to hide from the world. At exactly 2 a.m., 3 patrol cars sped silently into the night, lights off. The special unit, clad in bulletproof vests and armed with flashlights and weapons, advanced quietly. Their footsteps on the dry forest floor crackled like whispers in the eerie night. As they neared the house, light spilled faintly from a single open window. The lead officer raised his hand. The team fanned out, surrounding the building. Then came a firm knock and a commanding shout, "Sonoma Police, open up! Hands on your head!" A tense silence followed. Then the wooden door creaked open. The suspect appeared, gaunt, unkempt, his eyes wide with fear, yet defiant. Flashlights caught his face, his trembling hands rising slowly as he was ordered to his knees. The metallic snap of handcuffs broke the silence. He was led away, leaving his little house, swallowed once more by the cold darkness. In the interrogation room, the suspect sat hunched, the overhead light bleaching his pale face. His lips stayed pressed tight as he glared silently at the officers. For the first 2 hours, he said nothing. But when the lead investigator placed in front of him Emily's mud-streaked headband and the chilling messages found on his phone, his eyes finally wavered. Then came a cold, barely audible whisper. "I just wanted her to be scared, to know who's really in control." The room fell silent. That confession, vague but damning, was enough to pierce the wall of silence that had shrouded the case for so long. Out in the hallway, Sarah Klein leaned against the wall, her hands clenched. She stared through the glass at the man now slumped under the harsh light, his face ghostly and unnerving. A long breath escaped her, heavy yet laced with relief, though she knew deep down it still wasn't over. In the darkness of the police station, the neon lights still burned, but the hidden corners of this story waited to be fully revealed. The next day, news of the suspect's arrest swept through Sonoma like a storm. Local newspapers ran bold headlines. Radio stations repeated breaking news bulletins. Prime suspect in Emily Parker disappearance arrested. In the town center, people gathered outside cafes and markets, whispering with a mix of horror and faint relief in their eyes. But for Emily's family, this was only part of the truth. At home, Mary Parker, Emily's mother, sat in an old armchair, her trembling hands clutching the last photo of her daughter, taken that final morning on Wild Oak Trail. Her face was lined with worry, her eyes swollen and red, yet still holding the faintest glimmer of hope. Hope that Emily was still out there somewhere, waiting to be found, waiting to come home. James Morgan, Emily's boyfriend, was nearly undone after countless sleepless nights. He sat alone in the empty living room, staring at his phone screen, where dozens of unanswered messages still lingered, as though she might reply at any moment. Sarah Klein never left the Parker family's side. She became their emotional anchor, helping them communicate with police, relaying updates on the investigation. Yet, when she stepped outside, she too leaned against the wall, taking a long, shaky breath to keep herself from breaking down. Meanwhile, investigators continued questioning the suspect. Though he admitted to stalking Emily and teaching her a lesson, he deliberately evaded every question about where she was now. Each time they pressed him, he either hung his head in silence or curled his lips into a chilling, twisted smile. His eyes still haunted everyone in the room, cold, as though hiding a terrifying truth no one could reach. Outside, the Sonoma community held a candlelight vigil in the town square. Hundreds came, holding photos of Emily and posters reading, "Bring Emily home." The flickering candlelight illuminated the faces of neighbors, friends, and strangers alike, tears mingling with quiet hymns that echoed through the night air. In every heart, the pain still weighed heavy. But amid the darkness, hope flickered. Hope that Emily was still alive, that she would return, and that justice would ultimately prevail. As night fell over Sonoma, the lights in the interrogation room still blazed, casting harsh white over the suspect's gaunt face. He sat motionless, hollow eyes staring ahead, his cuffed hands resting on the cold metal table. His silence stretched on through the questioning, like a thick wall deflecting every effort from the investigators. But the team didn't relent. One by one, they laid out photographs of the crime scene before him, the disturbing text messages he'd sent, the electronic evidence painstakingly gathered over weeks. The lead investigator's voice was firm, unyielding. "We know you followed her for weeks. We know you waited for her out there. You planned this. And now, you're going to tell us what you did to Emily." The suspect finally lifted his head, his dark eyes narrowing, lips pressed tight. A minute, then two, passed in suffocating silence before he spoke, slow and chilling. "She disrespected me. They all did. I just wanted her to understand. I was in control." The words hung heavy in the air, drawing sharp looks from everyone in the room. The investigator pressed harder. "Where is she? What did you do to her?" But the suspect only gave a twisted, grotesque smile, his eyes glinting with sick satisfaction. "If you're so good, then find her yourself." The team filed out of the room, a heavy weight settling over them. Out in the hallway, Sarah stood listening through the glass, her chest tightening with each word. In her mind, she saw Emily's bright smile on Wild Oak Trail again, and it made her stomach twist in grief. That night, the town of Sonoma stayed awake. News of the confession spread quickly, and the community gathered once more in the square. This time, not just to pray, but to demand justice. Candles were lit, songs rose into the cool air, blending with the quiet sobs of mothers, fathers, neighbors who had once seen Emily running past them on sunny mornings. At the police station, the map of Wild Oak Trail was laid out again. New red markers dotted the page. More remote areas, places few ever ventured, where Emily might still be waiting to be found. Search teams prepared to head out immediately, with flashlights, search dogs, and the fragile hope that somewhere in that darkness, they would recover the light of truth. Outside the station, Sarah stood alone, her eyes rimmed red, staring into the shadowy oak forest in the distance. She whispered to herself, to Emily, "We'll find you. No matter what. We'll bring you home." That morning, the sky over Sonoma was a pale gray, clouds curling around the oak-covered hills. A quiet convoy of rescue and police vehicles crept into the deepest stretch of Wild Oak Trail, the final red-marked point on the map. The air was frigid, so silent that every footstep crunching over dry leaves sounded like a hammer strike to the heart. Sarah, wrapped in her coat, followed behind the search team, clutching Emily's photograph as if it were a charm against the rising tide of fear in her chest. They split into groups, weaving through winding trails, flashlights sweeping over mossy trunks and thick underbrush. The rescue dogs darted ahead, noses low to the ground, tails wagging faintly when they caught a scent. And then, in a strange, breathless stillness, Rosie, Henry's Legato Romagnolo, stopped, let out a soft bark, and began pawing at a thick mat of leaves beneath an ancient oak. Henry rushed forward, hands trembling as he pulled the leaves aside. The soil there was freshly disturbed, still damp. Forensics moved in quickly, cordoning the area and digging with deliberate care, until all sound seemed to vanish. Beneath the earth, wrapped in a filthy tarp, lay Emily Parker, her golden hair fanned out like fragile sunlight lost in the deep woods. Her face bore a quiet, aching peace, as though she had resigned herself to her fate long ago. Sarah stood frozen, tears spilling down her cheeks before she realized. She stepped forward, knelt, her shaking hand gently touching Emily's cold fingers, and whispered, "We promised you, and we brought you home." Around her, flashlight beams wavered over the solemn faces of the search team. One officer lowered his head, discreetly wiping at his red eyes. Henry turned away, clutching Rosie, softly thanking the little dog that had finally brought Emily back. That afternoon, the town of Sonoma welcomed Emily home in the embrace of her family and community. A memorial was held at sunset. Hundreds gathered, holding candles, singing hymns, calling her name. In the flickering glow of countless flames, Emily's face smiled softly from a large photograph, a final farewell. Sarah stood among the crowd, gripping her candle tight, eyes lifted to the blazing red sky. She whispered one last time, her voice shaky but steady. "Justice has been done, and you're finally home." As the darkness receded, the wind carried the scent of wood and damp earth, a quiet reminder to everyone. The shadows may last long, but the dawn of truth always comes.